My dad took his own life on my 5th birthday, but the letters he left me were from his best friend, not him. When I found out, I confronted him and learned the dark truth about my dad's death. Now he's in prison, but I'll never get the letters I thought were from my dad. My dad took his own life on my 5th birthday. I remember the night clearly, the way my mother screamed, the flash of blue and red lights bouncing off the walls of our living room. She didn't think I understood what was going on, but I did. He was gone. Forever. I hated my birthday after that. But on my 8th birthday, something changed. I found a letter on our doorstep, sealed with wax, my name written on the front in my dad's handwriting. I still remember what he said, because I reread it every single morning. He told me that whenever I hugged the teddy bear he got me, or heard a robin bird, his favorite, singing, it meant he was with me, always. I never really found out where they were coming from. My mom said she had no idea, and she was convinced it was some friendly stranger, but somehow, I knew that it was him. Since then, every year on my birthday, a letter sealed with a red wax stamp has always shown up at my door, protected with an umbrella. As I got older, the letters became more and more elaborate. He'd congratulate me on making it to my middle school graduation, for getting my driver's license. And it always ended in the same way. When you hear those robins sing, know that it's me reminding you that love never dies. It just changes shape. But on my 17th birthday, things took a turn. I received my letter like usual, but it was different. He still wrote about how proud he was, how much he loved me. But then he mentioned Ella, my best friend Ella. He said he was happy I found her. But the thing is, I only met Ella a few months ago. My hands shook as I read it, the words blurring together. I tried to tell myself it was some kind of mistake. Maybe I'd mentioned her in passing before, but I knew I hadn't. That cracked something open in me, but I still so desperately wanted it to be true. And I knew exactly who to ask. Mr. Grayson. He was my dad's best friend of all time, and he lived just 3 blocks away. I didn't even bother knocking, just marched right up and pounded on the door until he opened it. Sophie, is everything all right? I shoved the letter at him. How did he know? He stared at the letter, then back at me. What do you mean? Ella. He couldn't have known that. He's been dead for 12 years. His smile fell and was replaced by something darker, but I was losing patience. Are they fake? Has someone else been writing these? Your father knew you better than you think, he replied, voice low and calm. I nodded like his answer was good enough, but it wasn't. And so I did what every respectable 17-year-old girl would do in my shoes. I started watching him. Every day after school, I'd sit on the corner and wait for him to leave his house. I didn't even know what I was looking for, until one day when I saw him drive out of town. He didn't even notice me following him. He ended up driving all the way to the edge of town, to this rundown storage unit behind an old gas station. By the time he had finally come out and drove away, I had already finished 2 full Emma Chamberlain podcast episodes, so that's when I snuck in. The storage unit was still unlocked, probably because he hadn't expected a psycho beach to come snooping around. Inside, it smelled like dust and black mold, rows of boxes stacked to the ceiling. I flipped one open. Letters. Dozens of them, all sealed with wax, all labeled with names. I pulled them out slowly, my hands shaking. None of the names were familiar. That's when I found one that I finally recognized, because it had my name on it. For Sophie, if she finds this. It was the exact same wax seal and same handwriting as all the other letters I'd received. The letter read, if you're reading this, Sophie, it means every letter has been safely delivered to your door. Happy 18th birthday, my love. You're now old enough to know the truth. I wrote all of these before I left. I spent my last months putting everything I had into them. Memories, stories, advice I wanted you to have even when I couldn't be there. I hope I was right about the predictions I made about the friends you'd have. I made them based on the woman I knew your mother would raise you to become. I love you. By this point, I was a crying mess, and I felt this hunger to know more. So I kept digging, and I found more stacks of letters, all addressed to different girls' names. I couldn't help myself, so I ripped them open. What I read made me feel like there were suddenly insects crawling all over my skin, because in the exact same handwriting, with the exact same font, were all different letters claiming to be their father. Each letter had different details about their lives, different ways of saying he loved them, like it was personal. I swallowed the bile that was rising in my throat, ran back to my car, and broke every speed limit to drive straight to Mr. Grayson's house. What did you do? I yelled as soon as he opened the door. When he saw me holding the letters, I saw fear flash across his face. Good. He didn't answer, just stepped aside and gestured for me to come in. As soon as I did, he shut the door behind me. You shouldn't have gone there, Sophie. As soon as I did, he shut the door behind me with a soft click that sounded like a trap snapping shut. I backed away from him, clutching the letters to my chest like a shield. These aren't from my dad, are they? You wrote them. All of them. No, it's not. You've been pretending to be my dead father for 9 years. My voice cracked on the last word, betraying the hurt beneath my anger. I was trying to help, he said, taking a step toward me. Your mother was worried about you. You were so sad after he died. The letters made you happy. I shook my head, backing up until I hit the wall, the framed photos rattling slightly. And what about the other girls? What about their letters? Something changed in his eyes then. They went cold, calculating. You weren't supposed to see those. I felt sick, my stomach churning. You're sick. You're playing with people's grief. I'm going to tell everyone what you've been doing. He laughed then, a sound that made my skin crawl. Who would believe you? I'm a respected member of this community. You're just a confused teenager. I bolted for the door, but he was faster. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise, his nails leaving crescent marks in my skin. Sophie, you need to calm down and listen to me, he said, his voice eerily calm. I've been helping you all these years. Don't you see that? I didn't answer. I just ran. I threw open the door and sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys as my hands shook. I could see him standing in the doorway, watching me, not even trying to chase me. That scared me more than if he had. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing faster than my car. The letters were scattered on the passenger seat next to me, damning evidence of whatever sick game Mr. Grayson was playing. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see his blue sedan following me, but the road behind me stayed empty. When I got home, I locked myself in my room and spread the letters across my bed. I read through them again, trying to make sense of it all. Some were addressed to girls named Olivia, Kimberly, Jennifer, girls I'd never met. Each letter was supposedly from their dead fathers, filled with personal details and loving words. It made my skin crawl. I grabbed my phone and started Googling Mr. Grayson. I'd never really thought to look him up before. He was just my dad's friend, a fixture in our lives since I was little. The search results showed nothing suspicious, just his LinkedIn profile showing he worked at the same insurance company my dad had, some mentions in local newspaper articles about community events. Nothing that screamed creepy guy who pretends to be dead dads. I needed to talk to someone, but who would believe me? My mom had always been convinced the letters were from some well-meaning stranger. She'd think I was being dramatic if I accused Mr. Grayson. My friends would probably think I'd lost it too, except maybe Ella. I texted her, "Can you come over? It's an emergency." She replied almost instantly, "On my way." While waiting for Ella, I paced my room, occasionally stopping to look at the letters again. I'd believed them for so long, treasured them, slept with them under my pillow on the hardest nights. Finding out they were fake felt like losing my dad all over again. I pulled her into my room and locked the door behind us. "What's going on? You look terrible," she said, dropping her backpack on the floor. I didn't know where to start, so I just pointed at the letters spread across my bed. "Remember those birthday letters I told you about? From my dad?" She nodded, her eyes widening as she took in the mess of opened envelopes. "They're fake. Mr. Grayson's been writing them, and not just to me. I picked up one addressed to someone named Rachel. He's been doing this to other girls too." Ella sat down heavily on my desk chair. "That's really messed up." I told her everything, about following Mr. Grayson to the storage unit, finding the letters, confronting him. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more horrified with each detail. "We need to tell someone," she said when I finished. "This is seriously creepy behavior. Who would believe us? It's my word against his. And he's right. He's respected in this town. Everyone thinks he's this great guy who's always been there for my mom and me after dad died." Ella picked up one of the letters, examining the handwriting. "What about these other girls? If we could find them, maybe they'd back you up." That was actually a good idea. I hadn't thought about tracking down the other recipients. If Mr. Grayson had been sending them letters too, maybe they'd also noticed something off. "We need to go back to that storage unit," I said. "There might be addresses or more information about these girls." Ella looked nervous. "What if he catches us? He works during the day. We can go tomorrow morning. Skip first period." We spent the next hour making a plan. Ella would pick me up early, we'd drive to the storage unit, and look for any information that could help us identify the other girls. I felt better having someone else know what was happening, someone who believed me. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house made me jump, convinced it was Mr. Grayson breaking in to stop me from exposing him. I kept the letters hidden under my mattress, afraid my mom would find them and confront him before I had more evidence. The next morning, Ella picked me up at 7:30. We told our parents we had an early study group for a test. The storage facility looked even more rundown in the morning light, paint peeling from the metal doors, weeds growing through cracks in the concrete. I led Ella to Unit 27, the one I'd seen Mr. Grayson enter. My heart sank when I saw the padlock on the door. He must have secured it after realizing I'd been there. "Now what?" Ella asked, tugging uselessly at the lock. I looked around, spotting the small office at the front of the facility. Maybe the manager has a master key or something. We walked to the office where a bored-looking guy named Kenneth, according to his name tag, was scrolling through his phone. He looked up when we entered, raising an eyebrow at two teenage girls showing up at a storage facility at 8 a.m. on a school day. I quickly made up a story about my Uncle Grayson asking us to grab some boxes from his unit because he was out of town. Kenneth wasn't buying it. "No ID, no access," he said, turning back to his phone. "Facility policy." Ella stepped forward. "Please, it's really important. We're doing a family history project for school, and all the old photos are in there." Kenneth remained unmoved. We were about to give up when I had an idea. I pulled out my phone and showed him a picture of me and Mr. Grayson from last Christmas, one my mom had taken at our annual neighborhood party. "See? That's my uncle, Unit 27. Kenneth squinted at the photo, then at me. "Fine, but I'm coming with you, and you got 15 minutes max." We followed Kenneth to the unit, where he unlocked the padlock with a master key. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching us. 15 minutes, he reminded us. The unit looked different in daylight. Dust particles danced in the sunbeams coming through the small window near the ceiling. The boxes were still there, stacked neatly against the walls. I headed straight for the one I'd opened yesterday, labeled Correspondence 2023. With Kenneth watching, I couldn't just start ripping open letters. Instead, I pretended to look for photo albums while secretly checking for address books, contact information, anything that might lead us to the other girls. Ella was doing the same on the other side of the unit, methodically opening boxes and rifling through their contents. She caught my eye and subtly shook her head. Nothing useful yet. I moved to another box labeled Records. Inside were folders organized by year, going back at least a decade. I flipped through them quickly, conscious of Kenneth checking his watch every few minutes. 5 minutes left, he called out. I was about to give up when I noticed a small black notebook at the bottom of the box. I grabbed it and flipped it open. Inside was a carefully organized list of names, addresses, and phone numbers. Not as convenient as I'd initially hoped, but methodically compiled over what appeared to be years of calculated effort. I quickly took photos of several pages with my phone, making sure Kenneth couldn't see what I was doing. "Time's up," Kenneth announced. "Find what you needed?" "Not really," I said, trying to look disappointed. "I guess we'll have to come back with my uncle." We thanked Kenneth and left, waiting until we were safely in Ella's car before I showed her what I'd found. "Look at this," I said, scrolling through the photos I'd taken. "All these girls' names match the letters I found, and there are addresses and phone numbers." Ella looked impressed. "So what's the plan? We just start calling them?" I nodded. "We need to find out if they've been getting letters too, and for how long." We decided to skip school entirely and start making calls from Ella's house, where her parents were both at work. The first few numbers we tried were disconnected or wrong numbers. The fifth one, for a girl named Victoria, finally connected. A woman answered, sounding cautious. "Hello?" I took a deep breath. "Hi, is this Victoria Thompson?" "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Sophie. You don't know me, but have you been receiving letters from your father? Letters sealed with red wax?" There was a long silence on the other end. Then, "How do you know about those?" My heart raced. "Because I've been getting them too. But they're not from our dads. They're from a man named Richard Grayson." Another long pause. That's not possible. My letters are from my father. He died when I was 7. Mine too. I mean, my dad died when I was 5. I believed the letters were from him until yesterday, when I found out Mr. Grayson's been writing them. I could hear Victoria breathing on the other end of the line. This isn't funny. I'm not joking. I found a storage unit full of letters to different girls, all pretending to be from their dead fathers. Your name was on some of them. I don't believe you, she said, but her voice wavered. Have your letters ever mentioned things they shouldn't know? People you've met recently? Events your dad couldn't have known about? The silence told me I'd hit a nerve. My last letter mentioned my boyfriend, Victoria finally said, her voice small. I only started dating him 3 months ago. We talked for another 20 minutes. Victoria was 19, lived in the next town over, and had been receiving letters since she was 10. Her father had died in a car accident. Mr. Grayson had been his insurance agent, helping her mother with the life insurance claim, just like with my dad. By the end of the day, we'd managed to reach 3 more girls, Samantha, Catherine, and Cheryl. All had lost their fathers at young ages. All had been receiving letters sealed with red wax for years. And in every case, Mr. Grayson had been connected to their families through his job at the insurance company. This is so messed up, Ella said as we reviewed our notes. He's been targeting grieving families through his job, pretending to be their dead relatives. That's seriously disturbing behavior. I nodded, feeling sick. We need to go to the police. With what evidence? Some phone calls and letters that you technically stole? She had a point. We needed more concrete proof that Mr. Grayson was behind this, something that directly connected him to the letters. What about handwriting analysis? Ella suggested. We could compare the letters to something he definitely wrote. That would take too long, and we'd need an expert, I said. We need to catch him in the act somehow. We brainstormed ideas, each one seeming more far-fetched than the last. Finally, I had a thought. My birthday is in 2 weeks. He always delivers a letter on my birthday. If we could somehow catch him putting it on my doorstep. Ella's eyes lit up. We could set up a camera. My brother has this wildlife cam he uses for his nature photography. It's motion activated and works at night. It was a plan. Not a great one, but better than nothing. In the meantime, we decided to gather as much information as possible from the other girls. The next day at school was torture. I kept seeing Mr. Grayson everywhere. In the hallway, in the parking lot, at the coffee shop across the street. He wasn't actually there, of course, but my paranoia was in overdrive. I jumped every time my phone buzzed, thinking it might be him somehow tracking me down. After school, Ella and I drove to meet Victoria at a cafe halfway between our towns. She was already there when we arrived, nervously stirring a cup of coffee. She looked older than 19, with dark circles under her eyes and a tense set to her shoulders. I brought my letters, she said without preamble, sliding a folder across the table. I opened it to find a stack of letters similar to mine, all sealed with the same red wax, all in the same handwriting. The content was different, personal details about Victoria's life, references to her father's memories, but the style was unmistakably the same. When did you start getting suspicious? I asked. Victoria sighed. About a year ago. The letter mentioned my college major, but I had only decided on it a few weeks earlier. I told myself maybe my mom had mentioned it to someone who knew my dad, but it felt off. Has Mr. Grayson stayed in touch with your family? Ella asked. He checks in every few months, calls my mom, asks how we're doing. She thinks he's just being nice. He even helped me apply for a scholarship from his company. That tracked with what the other girls had told us over the phone. Mr. Grayson maintained connections with all the families, positioning himself as a supportive friend while secretly manipulating their grief. We're going to stop him, I promised Victoria. Somehow. The next week was a blur of planning and gathering information. We connected with 5 more girls who had received letters, all with similar stories. Mr. Grayson had inserted himself into their lives through his job, gained their trust, then started the letters once he had enough personal information to make them believable. Ella borrowed her brother's wildlife camera, and we set it up on my front porch, hidden in a potted plant with a clear view of the doorstep. My birthday was in 3 days, and if Mr. Grayson stuck to his pattern, he'd be delivering a letter. The night before my birthday, I could barely sleep. I kept getting up to check the camera, making sure it was still working. By morning, I was exhausted but wired on adrenaline. Happy birthday, my mom said when I came downstairs, giving me a hug. Any plans with Ella today? Just hanging out, I said, trying to act normal. Maybe a movie later. She smiled. That sounds nice. Oh, and Mr. Grayson called earlier to wish you a happy birthday. He said he might stop by later with a gift. My blood ran cold. He knew. Somehow, he knew we were onto him. I texted Ella immediately. SOS. Grayson called my mom. Says he's coming over later. I think he suspects something. Ella replied, on my way. Don't panic. But I was already panicking. What if he found the camera? What if he confronted me about the storage unit? What if he'd been watching us this whole time? I paced my room, jumping at every sound outside. When the doorbell rang around noon, I nearly had a heart attack. Sophie, Mr. Grayson is here. My mom called up the stairs. I took a deep breath, checked my appearance in the mirror, and headed downstairs, trying to look normal. Mr. Grayson was standing in our living room, holding a wrapped gift and smiling like nothing was wrong. There's the birthday girl, he said cheerfully. 18 at last. Your father would be so proud. I forced a smile, my cheeks hurting with the effort. Thanks for coming by. I wouldn't miss it. Here, open your present. My mom watched, beaming, as I unwrapped the gift with trembling fingers. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal with my initials embossed on the cover. For all your thoughts and dreams, Mr. Grayson said. Your father always said you had a writer's soul. The mention of my dad and his mouth made me want to scream, but I kept my composure. Thank you. It's lovely. I was hoping we could catch up a bit, he said, his eyes never leaving my face. It's been a while since we really talked. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang again. My mom went to answer it, and I heard Ella's voice in the hallway. I'd never been so relieved to see anyone in my life. Sorry to interrupt, Ella said, entering the living room. I didn't realize you had company. Mr. Grayson's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Ella, right? Sophie's new friend. I've heard so much about you. Ella and I exchanged glances. How did he know about her? I'd never mentioned her to him before that confrontation at his house. Mr. Grayson was just leaving, I said quickly. We have plans. Actually, he said, settling more comfortably into his chair. I was hoping to talk to you about college applications. I have some connections at a few schools that might be helpful. My mom clapped her hands together. That would be wonderful. Sophie's been stressing about applications. I was trapped. I couldn't make a scene without raising suspicions, but every minute in his presence made my skin crawl. Maybe another time, I suggested. Ella and I have movie tickets for this afternoon. Mr. Grayson checked his watch. I won't keep you long. Just wanted to pass along some information. He pulled out a business card and handed it to me. An old college friend of mine is the admissions director at State. Give him a call. Mention my name. I took the card, noticing a small note scribbled on the back. I turned it over discreetly. I know what you're doing. Stop now. My heart nearly stopped. I shoved the card in my pocket before anyone else could see it, trying to keep my expression neutral. Thanks, I managed to say. I'll definitely call him. Mr. Grayson stood, straightening his jacket. I should get going. Happy birthday again, Sophie. As he headed for the door, he paused beside me and lowered his voice. Check your mailbox. I think there might be something special waiting for you. After he left, I ran to the mailbox, Ella right behind me. Inside was an envelope sealed with red wax, just like always. But when I opened it, there was no birthday message inside. Just 5 words. I know about the camera. I showed it to Ella, my hands shaking. He's on to us. He knows everything. Ella took the note, her face pale. We need to move fast. If he knows we're investigating him, who knows what he might do next? We retreated to my room to regroup. The camera was obviously compromised. Either he'd spotted it or he'd been watching the house. Either way, our plan to catch him in the act was ruined. What about the other girls? Ella suggested. Maybe one of them has something more concrete we can use against him. I nodded, pulling out my phone to text Victoria. Before I could send anything, a new message popped up from an unknown number. Stop digging or everyone finds out what really happened to your father. I nearly dropped my phone. Ella, look at this. She read the message, her eyes widening. What does that mean? What really happened to your father? I don't know, I whispered. Everyone knows he unalived himself. It's a bluff, Ella said firmly. He's trying to scare you into backing off. But the seed of doubt had been planted. What if there was something I didn't know about my dad's death? Something Mr. Grayson was holding over my head? I called my mom at work, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom, did anything weird happen with Dad's life insurance after he died? She sounded surprised by the question. No, everything went smoothly. Mr. Grayson handled it all for me. Why do you ask? Just curious. Did Dad leave a sewer slide note? A pause. Sophie, where is this coming from? Please, Mom. It's important. She sighed. Yes, there was a note. The police gave it to me after everything. I've kept it all these years. Can I see it? Another pause. When I get home, we can talk about this. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just thinking about Dad today. After hanging up, I turned to Ella. My mom has my dad's sewer slide note. I need to see it. You think it might have something to do with Grayson's threat? I nodded. Maybe there's something in it that doesn't add up. Something Grayson knows that I don't. We spent the next few hours contacting the other girls, warning them about Mr. Grayson's possible retaliation. Most were scared, but determined to help. Cheryl even revealed that she'd kept a voicemail from Mr. Grayson discussing one of the letters, not realizing at the time that it was evidence of his deception. He called to make sure I got my special delivery last year, she explained when she forwarded the audio file. Said he was checking on behalf of a mutual friend. It wasn't much, but it was something connecting him directly to the letters. When my mom got home, I asked about the sewer slide note again. She hesitated, then went to her bedroom and returned with a small lockbox. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. Are you sure you want to read this? She asked, concern etched on her face. I nodded, taking the paper with trembling hands. The handwriting was unmistakably my father's, the same handwriting that had been on all my birthday letters. I read it slowly, tears blurring my vision. It was short, just a few lines apologizing for the pain he was causing, saying he couldn't bear the weight anymore. Nothing suspicious, nothing that pointed to foul play or secrets. But then I noticed something odd. The signature at the bottom. It didn't match the handwriting in the letters I'd been receiving. It was similar, but there were subtle differences in the way certain letters were formed. I pulled out my phone and compared it to photos I'd taken of my birthday letters. The discrepancy was small but definite. Either my dad's sewer slide note was forged, or the birthday letters were. Given what I now knew, the answer was obvious. Mom, I said slowly, I need to tell you something about Mr. Grayson. I showed my mom everything. The letters from the storage unit, the messages from the other girls, the threatening text. Her face went through about a million emotions in 5 seconds. Shock, disbelief, anger, and finally this cold, hard look I'd never seen before. That son of a... She stopped herself, took a deep breath. I trusted him. He was at our house for Christmas. He helped me with your college fund. I know, Mom. I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't you dare apologize. This isn't your fault. She picked up her phone. I'm calling the police. I grabbed her wrist. Wait, he knows we're onto him. What if he destroys everything before they can investigate? We need more proof. My mom looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. What do you need me to do? That's how Operation Catch the Creep started. My mom called Mr. Grayson the next day, told him she was worried about me, said I'd been acting strange, asking questions about Dad's death. She was really convincing, all concerned and stuff. Asked if he could come over for dinner that weekend to talk to me. He agreed immediately. Of course he did. Meanwhile, Ella and I worked with the other girls to build our case. Victoria drove over with all her letters. Samantha sent scans of hers. Cheryl's voicemail was the cherry on top. Clear evidence of Mr. Grayson's involvement with the letters. We also got Ella's brother Jonathan to help us. He's this computer whiz who's always getting in trouble for hacking stuff. He managed to recover deleted emails from an old laptop my mom had given me. Emails between Mr. Grayson and my dad from before he died. Nothing suspicious in them, just normal work stuff. But they gave us samples of my dad's actual writing to compare with the fake letters. The day before the dinner, I was a nervous wreck. What if Mr. Grayson suspected something? What if he didn't show up? What if our evidence wasn't enough? Calm down, Ella said, watching me pace around my bedroom. Everything's ready. Your mom contacted Officer Martinez. He'll be waiting for your signal. Officer Martinez Martinez was this cop who'd known my family forever. He agreed to help us set up the sting without making it official yet. He said we needed a confession or clear evidence connecting Mr. Grayson to the letters. I know, I said, still pacing. I just keep thinking about all those years I believed those letters were from my dad. All those birthdays I spent crying over fake words. Ella grabbed my shoulders. Hey, focus. Tomorrow we end this. Saturday arrived and my mom went into full hostess mode, cooking up this big lasagna dinner like everything was normal. I helped set the table, my hands shaking so bad I dropped a glass and had to sweep up the pieces. At exactly 6:30, the doorbell rang. Mr. Grayson stood there with a bottle of wine and that same fake smile. Rebecca, Sophie, he said, nodding to each of us. Thanks for having me over. My mom took the wine, all smiles. Thank you for coming. I've been so worried about Sophie. I tried to look sullen and troubled, which wasn't hard considering I wanted to punch him in the face. We sat down to dinner, making awkward small talk about school and the weather. My mom had hidden her phone on the bookshelf, recording everything. Finally, she brought up the reason for the dinner. Richard, Sophie's been asking a lot of questions about James's death, about the insurance policy, the sewer slide note. I thought maybe you could help clear things up. Mr. Grayson's eyes flicked to me, then back to my mom. Of course. What specifically is bothering you, Sophie? I took a deep breath. I've been wondering about those letters I get every year, the ones supposedly from my dad. His expression didn't change, but I saw his knuckles whiten around his fork. What about them? I think you've been writing them. The room went silent. My mom looked appropriately shocked, like we hadn't rehearsed this moment 20 times. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Grayson said, his voice eerily calm. Why would I do something like that? I don't know. Maybe you thought you were helping. Maybe you're just a creep who gets off on manipulating grieving families. Sophie, my mom gasped, playing her part perfectly. Mr. Grayson set down his fork. I understand you're upset, but I had nothing to do with those letters. Then how do you explain this? I pulled out my phone and played Cheryl's voicemail. His voice filled the dining room. Cheryl, it's Richard Grayson. Just checking if you received your special delivery yesterday. I promised a mutual friend I'd make sure it arrived safely. His face hardened. That was about a scholarship recommendation. No, it wasn't. It was about the letter you sent her, pretending to be her dead father. Just like you've been doing with me and at least 7 other girls. He laughed, but it sounded forced. This is absurd. Rebecca, I think Sophie needs help. She's clearly not coping well. My mom crossed her arms. Actually, I believe her. I've seen the evidence, Richard. His eyes darted between us, calculating. What evidence? That's when Ella, who'd been waiting in my bedroom, came down the stairs with Victoria. Mr. Grayson's face went pale. Remember me? Victoria asked, her voice shaking slightly. You helped my mom with my dad's life insurance claim. Then you started sending me letters pretending to be him. Mr. Grayson stood up so fast his chair fell backward. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. Not yet, I said, blocking his path to the door. We found your storage unit. All those letters, all those girls' names. We have photos of everything. You broke into my private property? His voice was getting louder. That's illegal. Anything you found is inadmissible. Maybe, my mom said. But the police tend to investigate when multiple families report the same disturbing behavior. His face changed then. The mask slipped, and for a second I saw something ugly underneath. Then he composed himself, straightening his jacket. Fine. I wrote the letters. Is that what you want to hear? I was trying to help. Do you have any idea how broken you were after your father died, Sophie? How many nights your mother called me, crying because she didn't know how to comfort you? So you lied to me? For years? I gave you comfort when you needed it most. I gave all of you something to hold on to. Victoria stepped forward. You had no right. You played with our emotions, made us believe our fathers were somehow still with us. And you were happier for it, he snapped. All of you were. I did what your fathers couldn't do. I stayed. I watched over you. I cared. The way he said it made my skin crawl, like he thought he deserved some kind of medal for his sick game. Did you forge my dad's sewer slide note too? I asked, the question that had been burning in my mind. His eyes widened slightly. What? Why would you think that? The handwriting doesn't match the letters. He actually laughed. Of course it doesn't. I copied your father's handwriting style for the letters, but I'm not a perfect forger. The sewer slide note is real, Sophie. Something about the way he said it made me pause. How do you know? Were you there when he wrote it? A flicker of something, panic, crossed his face. No, of course not. I just meant the police confirmed it was his handwriting. My mom was staring at him now, her expression hardening. Richard, what aren't you telling us about James's death? He looked trapped. Nothing. He unalived himself. You know that. Then why did you threaten Sophie? Why tell her to stop digging or everyone would find out what really happened to her father? His eyes darted to the door, like he was calculating if he could make a run for it. I was just trying to scare her off. There's nothing to find. But I could see it in his face. There was something. Something he didn't want us to know. You were the one who found him, I said slowly, remembering details from that night. You were the first one at our house. Before the police. Before anyone. I was checking on him. He'd been depressed for months. You know that, Rebecca. My mom stood up. What I know is that James was planning to report fraud at your company. He told me the night before he died that he'd found evidence of you falsifying insurance claims. Mr. Grayson's face went completely blank. That's not true. It is. I didn't connect it until now. He said he was meeting with the company executives the next day, but he never made it to that meeting, did he? The room went so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Then Mr. Grayson lunged for the door. He didn't make it 3 steps before Officer Martinez stepped out from the kitchen where he'd been listening the whole time. 2 other officers appeared from the living room. Richard Grayson, you're under arrest for fraud and harassment, Officer Martinez said, cuffing him while reading his rights. Mr. Grayson looked at me, his eyes cold. I was helping you. All of you. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is believing those letters were from my dad, I said. You took advantage of grieving families. You're pathetic. They took him away, and the house felt suddenly empty. My mom, Ella, Victoria, and I sat in the living room, processing what had just happened. Do you think he unalived your dad? Victoria asked quietly. My mom shook her head. I don't know. The police will investigate now that they know about the fraud allegations, but James had been struggling with depression for years. It's possible it really was sewer slide. Either way, I said. At least now we know the truth about the letters. The investigation took months. They found evidence in Mr. Grayson's home connecting him to all the fake letters, stationery, wax seals, copies of personal information about each girl. He'd been running his scheme for over 15 years, targeting families after handling their life insurance claims. As for my dad's death, the case was reopened but ultimately ruled a sewer's light again. There wasn't enough evidence to prove Mr. Grayson had been involved, though the timing with the fraud report remained suspicious. Mr. Grayson eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and harassment to avoid a longer sentence. He got 5 years in prison. My 18th birthday came and went without a letter for the first time in a decade. It felt strange, but also freeing. I didn't need fake words from a manipulative creep to feel connected to my dad. Instead, my mom and I went through old photo albums and home videos. She told me stories about him I'd never heard before. How he'd sing off-key in the shower, how he'd always burn pancakes on one side, how his laugh could fill a room. "He loved you more than anything in this world, Sophie," she said, showing me a picture of him holding me as a baby. That's the truth, not those letters. The other girls and I stayed in touch. We formed this weird support group of sorts, helping each other process the betrayal and grief. Victoria even transferred to my college so we could be roommates. Last week, almost a year after everything went down, I visited my dad's grave for the first time since I was little. I brought a single letter, one I'd written myself. I read it aloud, telling him about my life, my hopes, my memories of him. Then I folded it up and buried it under a small rock near his headstone. As I was leaving, a robin landed on a nearby tree and started singing. I smiled, not because I believed it was some sign from beyond, but because it reminded me that life goes on, that healing is possible, that some connections can't be faked or stolen, no matter how hard someone tries.